So I'd have to say, Sean, that at the moment, we're really beginning in that, like yesterday and today now, getting active feedback from members about how they're being affected by the protests and the disruption that's being caused. So I suppose, when we look at how it's affecting our own members at the moment, some of them are having some difficulties around supply chain. There's the usual problems of getting in and out of work, making plans, and some of them are sharing stories about how they've been affected personally by this. I know just in the last 20 minutes, I've had a text message from somebody, I don't know them, but they've got my number, in North Clare, saying, is it worth coming to Ennis? Is there petrol in Ennis? Question mark. So I think people are panicking as well. It's kind of got to that stage. It's as you say now, in the fourth day, and I think people are panicking. And I think there's a feeling that the protests have become quite militant, and people are they've got themselves into a corner, and we really hope that the meeting goes well this afternoon. I think the only way we can really try and solve this is through reasonable discussion. And that needs two sides to be involved in that, and I think that we need to see what comes out of that. I think that people, there's a certain amount of sympathy, certainly at the beginning, for the plight of the affected businesses, the hauliers, etc. But all businesses are affected, that's the reality, by the increase, and all households are affected by the increase in prices at the moment, whether it's going to be home heating oil, and God knows the weather has conspired against us as well. I was looking at my phone app earlier, it says 8 degrees in Ennis, feels like -3. I think we can all attest to that. So, it's every aspect of our own lives as well. The cost of doing business is through the roof. And in the last 6 months, the burdens placed on certainly the small businesses with all the new legislation that's come in has been really significant. Rates have gone up a huge amount. And, they're really, really nervous now because they can see an impact on footfall. So, I think, that sort of nervousness setting in. They also are telling me that people are coming in and they're browsing around the shops, but it's just like people have stopped buying all of a sudden.
People are more conservative with their money. Yeah. And Margaret, you mentioned there that you've heard from members from local businesses that are put out or inconvenienced by the protests, but surely you'd also have people who are participating in it. Have any of those got in contact with you?
We don't actually have any members in the haulage sector that are participating in this, so we don't have members participating in
no Ennis business supporting the protests.
Well, nobody's called me and said they're supporting the protests. People are calling me to say, what's happening? How's this going to be resolved? There are those kind of conversations today, Sean. As I say, it's day 4, and people are really getting very concerned now about what's going to happen. I mean, there's so much chaos in the country at the moment. So, and so much disruption has been caused by this. I think, even people who were saying to me, they understand when the protests started, they understand sort of where they were coming from, but I think they're less forgiving of the methods now.
You mentioned there, of course, and indeed we've heard from people around County Clare who are supportive of the protests and what they're setting out to achieve, ultimately getting a reduction in fuel prices. But a lot of those have said that while they're inconvenienced by the protests, it's up to the government to solve them. It's up to the government to find a solution and to engage. Would that be your own perspective as well, that the onus is on those in power and on our local TDs to reach some kind of a conclusion?
I think it's on both sides. And I watched somebody being interviewed on TV last night from the protests, and I mean, was asked what their demands were, and it started to kind of move into areas like we should be exploring for oil offshore. And I thought, where do we get to with this? I mean, there seems to be quite disparate groups involved now within the protests. It started off with, you could say group of hauliers, some of the farmers getting involved, but now there seem to be some disparate groups involved in there as well. So I think
an issue that a lot of people have noticed as well is
the government now to try and bring this to an end, because we're also in danger of turning oil away from our shores. And I think that those who were sourcing oil have done a really good job. We're ahead of the UK. We're not facing the same restrictions as they are at the moment. So we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot over this either, So it is getting that balance right.
Yeah, and perhaps a lack of clear leadership is proving to be an issue as well, because
Yeah.
this group, the People of Ireland Against Fuel Prices, it's a new group. It's essentially it's a Facebook page, and it doesn't have maybe the same
Yeah.
credibility as something like the IFA or IRHA. So difficulty even communicating to
And I think
participants about how to go about the protest, blockades, etc. It can get messy.
Yeah, and I would say that there's also seems to be an issue around communication, because in fairness, well, one protester who was seen to be a leader in the protest yesterday, when it was brought to his attention that X was happening somewhere else, he said, I don't know about that somebody else was just doing that. So I think this thing is growing over the days, and I think the people maybe who were at the heart of it, and for honourable reasons at the beginning, to try and try and get a profile for the fact that they were finding it difficult to survive in business with the cost of fuel. I think that there are other agents involved now in this protest, and I think that control is an issue. I'm sure that must be some of the thinking for the government as well, in saying that they're going to speak to, or continue to speak to, recognised representative groups.
And just finally, Margaret, to really highlight how this is affecting local businesses, you've mentioned in your statement a hotel in Ennis that has bookings over the weekend because of a music festival that's taking place. But some people already getting a bit skittish and a bit nervous about the weekend, cancelling their reservations, and that of course has an impact for that particular business.
And I think, Sean, what happened there was, on the national news last night, it talked about counties that had difficulty around fuel, and Clare was mentioned together with Limerick and Kerry, and people are now, because it's a festival, the hotel in question was depending on quite a lot of domestic travellers this weekend, and I think they're getting worried that if they leave Dublin, they won't be able to buy petrol in Clare to get back home again. So, we're kind of, that's again going back to the information, because I think in reality the petrol stations are still receiving petrol and diesel regularly. So I don't think that the protesters have stopped that happening at a local level, but the word is out there nationally that we're one of the counties affected. So it just shows you, I mean, that's all it takes, and then suddenly people in tourism are being affected, and bookings are being cancelled.